She always stopped at one. That was our silent rule. One glass of wine when she was out, not because I demanded it, but because she swore it kept her clear-headed. Anything more, and I get chatty, she used to say, tapping her temple and laughing. Tonight, she was on her second. I watched the red swirl in her glass as she laughed, not with her mouth, but with her shoulders, her posture, the way she tilted her head when he leaned closer. She didn't know I was there. I hadn't planned it. I swear on every aching part of my heart, I didn't go to that restaurant to spy. I was supposed to meet an old friend, Walter, a guy I hadn't seen since we both got laid off during the big cuts last winter. But Walter canceled last minute. So there I was, alone, table for two, candle flickering between my half-eaten salmon and a glass of water I hadn't touched. Then I saw her walk in. She didn't notice me. I was behind one of those dumb decorative columns the place thought added romantic atmosphere. She strolled right past with her little black clutch and that blue dress I'd never seen before. He was already waiting. No nervous energy. No awkwardness. He stood up like this was the 5th or 6th time, not the first. He kissed her cheek. She kissed his. And they sat down like they belonged to each other. I should have left. Every instinct in my bones told me, don't do this. Don't sit here and watch your world unravel. But I didn't move. Instead, I watched the small things. The way she didn't flinch when he touched her hand. The way she ordered the Merlot when she always said she hated reds. The way she smiled a half-second longer than usual. Then came the second glass. That's when her guard dropped. She laughed louder. Her eyes lingered on him more than they should have. She said something. I couldn't hear it. And he leaned in. Their heads touched. I looked down at my hands and realized they were shaking. That's when I asked for the bill. And a pen. I didn't finish the meal. I just scribbled 4 words on the receipt, folded it into thirds, and asked the waiter if he could deliver a note discreetly. He said sure. Didn't ask questions. Maybe he'd seen it all before. I stood up, slipped on my coat, walked past her without turning my head. I made it to the door before I heard the sound of a chair scrape suddenly against the floor. My note had reached her. It said, I saw the second glass. I didn't drive straight home. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly, and the buzzing in my ears wouldn't stop. So I parked in an empty grocery store lot and just sat there for almost an hour, watching shopping carts drift on the wind and replaying the night in my head like it was some low-budget movie I didn't want to be in. I kept picturing her face when she read the note. I didn't stay long enough to see her reaction, but my mind gave me a dozen versions of it anyway. Maybe she turned pale. Maybe she panicked and ran out after me. Maybe she laughed and crumpled it up without a second thought. Part of me hoped she'd be home before me, that she'd have rushed out the second she realized I was there, called a cab, raced back, and waited on the porch like some scene from a sad romance movie. But the driveway was empty. The house was dark. And inside, the air felt colder than usual. I left the lights off, sat in the kitchen, waited. 11:52 p.m. Nothing. 12:39, still nothing. At 1:06 a.m., I heard a car door. I didn't go to the window. I didn't want her to think I was waiting. But I listened closely. Her keys jingled. The door opened, and then it shut very softly, not like usual. No stomp of heels, no dramatic sigh. Just soft, sneaky silence. She didn't come into the kitchen. She didn't even peek in. She walked straight down the hall and shut the bedroom door. Click. Just like that. I sat there in the dark, still trying to feel something that wasn't burning. After 20 minutes, I finally got up, walked to the bedroom, and opened the door. She was lying on her side of the bed, still fully dressed, staring at the wall like I wasn't even real. I asked, "Did you enjoy your second glass?" She flinched. Just a little. But she didn't turn around. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered. Her voice sounded tired, like she'd rehearsed this denial 100 times in her head. I walked to my dresser, pulled out the envelope I'd hidden weeks ago, and dropped it on the bed beside her. She turned finally, looked down at it. "What's this?" "A copy of our marriage license," I said quietly. "You remember what that is, right?" She sat up then. "Keith, you're being dramatic." I actually laughed. For the first time in weeks, I laughed, that short, dry, bitter kind of laugh that people make when they finally stop caring. "No," I said. "You were being dramatic. You were the one leaning over your second glass of wine like you were in some perfume commercial. Like I didn't exist. Like our marriage wasn't still warm in the grave." She went quiet. Real quiet. And then she said the one thing I wasn't ready to hear. I wasn't going to tell you yet. Yet. That word rang in my head like a siren. There it was. Proof. She wasn't even going to deny it. Not really. I stood there, staring at a woman I no longer recognized, and realized the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the calmness on her face. Like she'd already mourned this. Like I was the only one still clinging to the wreckage. I said nothing else. Just turned, left the room, and slept on the couch. That was the night the silence between us became permanent. And in the silence, I made a decision she wouldn't see coming. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She brewed coffee. She watered the houseplants she always forgot existed. She even hummed, as if the night before was some dream I had to shake off like dust on my shoulders. I watched her move around the kitchen, barefoot, expression blank, like this was just Tuesday morning. No guilt, no apology, not even a sideways glance. I didn't say a word. I didn't trust myself to. Instead, I picked up a yellow notepad from the drawer, walked into the garage, and sat at the old workbench with a pen. I started writing a list. I don't know why. It wasn't some dramatic gesture at first. It was just instinct. Survival. The heading. Things I know now. She lied to my face. She didn't hesitate. She had a new dress. He waited for her like it wasn't new. She never looked around the restaurant. She wasn't afraid of being seen. The second glass of wine wasn't a mistake. She didn't come home because she missed me. She came home because he didn't invite her over. By the time I reached number 12, my hand was cramping and I realized I hadn't blinked in minutes. I just sat there in the cold garage, staring at the list like it was some sacred text. It was dumb, painful, pointless, but it made things feel real, tangible, like I could hold the truth instead of being drowned by it. I folded the paper, shoved it in my back pocket, and went back inside. She was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, pretending to laugh at something. Her feet were tucked under a blanket I bought her for our 5th anniversary, the one she said made her feel safe. I wondered if she ever told him that. I wondered if he even knew my name. I asked, "Did you call in sick today?" She didn't look up. I took a personal day. I needed to clear my head. I almost asked if he needed to clear his too, but I didn't. I just nodded and walked past her, up the stairs, into the guest room, a room we hadn't used in years, not since my mom stayed over for Christmas. That became my room from that day on. She didn't protest. She didn't follow me. She didn't even ask if I was serious. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the unfamiliar mattress staring at the ceiling fan spin, feeling every minute pass like a slow punch to the chest. I thought about calling someone, my brother, maybe. But how do you tell someone your marriage fell apart in silence? I pulled out the notepad again. New heading, what she thinks I don't know. That list was worse. The next morning, I started tracking things. Not like a madman, like someone who was done being lied to. What days she wore makeup. Which nights she worked late. When she came home smelling like citrus cologne that wasn't mine. I wasn't looking for proof. I already had it. I was building something. Quietly. Carefully. Because the next time I left her a note, it wouldn't just be on a napkin. It would be something permanent. And she'd never see it coming. 3 weeks passed without confrontation. We lived like ghosts in the same house, sharing walls, but not lives. No screaming matches, no dramatic apologies, no slamming doors. Just silence. Thick, nauseating silence that wrapped around every room like plastic over old furniture. She pretended I didn't exist, and I played along. But my mind was doing anything but resting. I knew I couldn't keep this going much longer. It was killing me in small doses. I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking I heard her whispering on the phone. I started checking the driveway from the upstairs window just to see if she came back in the same car. Every smile she faked at the sink. Every, "I'll be working late," text. I logged them all. Like clockwork. But what broke me wasn't anything she said. It was a dress. A red one. I was taking the trash out one morning, and I saw a dry cleaning tag hanging out of the back seat of her car. The door was slightly cracked open. I leaned in. The tag read, "Pick up for D. Rowley." It was her. Obviously. But the dress wasn't hers. Not really. I'd never seen it before. And Denise hated red. Except now, apparently, she didn't. That night, she said she was heading out to grab drinks with Heather. I almost laughed. Heather moved to Phoenix 2 months ago. I guess she forgot I actually read the Christmas newsletter from her company. I waited 10 minutes after she left. Then I followed. I know how it sounds. Desperate. Creepy. Weak. I won't argue. But when everything inside you is telling you your life is a lie, you stop caring how you look doing the digging. She drove downtown. Took the long way, like she was trying to shake off a tail. She parked near that same trendy Italian place where I first saw her with him. But she didn't go inside. Not right away. She stood on the sidewalk, texting, waiting. Then he arrived. Same guy. Slim. Clean cut. Confident like he didn't care who saw him. He kissed her neck. She laughed. Same laugh. Same fake little gasp like she was surprised. Then they walked inside together like they'd done it 100 times. This time, I didn't sit at the next table. I didn't even go in. I stood across the street, behind a bus stop sign, and just watched them through the window. She looked happy, relaxed, like someone who had already made peace with what she was doing. That was the moment I realized she had no intention of stopping. No guilt. No fear of getting caught. She believed I was too soft, too tired, too spineless to do anything about it. So I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Not for revenge. Not yet. Just for me. Just to stop feeling like I was insane. I left before they even ordered. Sat in my car for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the photo. Her smile. His hand on her waist. The red dress. That was the night I stopped being the version of me she married. I wasn't planning revenge. Not yet. I was planning clarity. And once I had it, I knew exactly what I'd leave behind. I didn't sleep the night I followed her. I stared at the photo until my phone died, and when I closed my eyes, I still saw her in that red dress, laughing at someone else's joke. I kept asking myself, was this the first time, or just the first time she got caught? But deep down, I already knew the answer. This was routine for her now. She didn't even check over her shoulder anymore. The next morning, she was back in the kitchen, hair in a messy bun, robe wrapped tight like nothing had happened. She made oatmeal and pretended to be tired. She always pretended to be tired lately. Rough night, she muttered. I wanted to ask at the restaurant or after, but I didn't. I just watched her lie to my face while stirring cinnamon into her bowl. And then fate handed me something. Something undeniable. She left her purse on the table. Normally, she's glued to it. Always zipped, always on her shoulder, like she's afraid I might look at it, which I never had. Not until that morning. She went upstairs to grab her laptop. Said she had a virtual meeting. The second I heard the bedroom door click, I opened the purse. My hands shook the entire time, but I knew I wouldn't get another chance. At first, I saw nothing. Just gum wrappers, receipts, her usual lipstick she rarely wears anymore. Then, tucked between a folded napkin and a loyalty card, I found it. A hotel receipt. From the Briarwood Inn. Room 312. Date, 2 nights ago. Time stamped, 11:43 p.m. The same night, she came home late and said she had car trouble near the highway. She wasn't even trying to be careful anymore. I took a picture of it and put everything back exactly as I found it. She came downstairs a minute later, gave me a dry little smile, and walked straight out the door. No kiss. No goodbye. Just the click of heels and a locked front door. That afternoon, I called the hotel. I didn't give them my name. Just said I'd found a receipt in my partner's bag, and I was trying to find out if she'd accidentally left something behind in room 312. The woman on the phone was polite but curt. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't release guest details. I expected that. What I didn't expect was what she said next. Was the item left under both names, or just hers? I didn't answer right away. I just froze. Then I said, just hers. The woman replied, okay. Well, if the other guest calls about it, we'll let them know you inquired. I hung up. She had booked the room under both names. She wasn't hiding him from the hotel. She wasn't even trying. That's when something in me changed. For good. I walked to the kitchen, pulled out the drawer where we keep the old birthday cards and spare batteries, and found the little notebook she used to keep her meal plans in. I flipped to a blank page and wrote in capital letters, "You're not coming back from this." I didn't know when I'd use it. I didn't know how. But I knew one day she'd see those words, and she'd know exactly what they meant. Because now it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about erasure. She erased me from her nights, from her honesty, from her story. But I was still here, and I was watching everything. It wasn't the hotel receipt that set things in motion. It wasn't even the photo of her in that red dress. What really cracked the whole thing open was a dumb Instagram story I wasn't even supposed to see. See, I don't have social media. Haven't for years. Denise always said I was trapped in 2010, and maybe she was right. But that didn't stop her from tagging me in a few old anniversary posts back when she still remembered we were a couple. And apparently, her account was still connected to my email. I hadn't checked that inbox in months. I only used it for warranty registrations and coupon spam. But that morning, while sipping lukewarm coffee alone in the kitchen, I opened it. I was looking for distraction. Instead, I found hell. There it was, a notification from Instagram. Amberlyn tagged you in a story. I clicked it without thinking. What I saw nearly made me drop my cup. The story had been up for 13 hours already. It was one of those boomerang videos, just a quick loop of clinking glasses at a hotel lounge bar. 3 people in frame. Amberlyn, Denise's co-worker, some other woman I didn't recognize, and Denise herself. And sitting next to her, half-cropped but unmistakably present, was him. The guy from the restaurant. The same smug grin, same tailored jacket, same arm resting behind her chair like he owned her. Except this time, Denise wasn't acting shy. She leaned into him, her head on his shoulder, his hand clearly resting on her thigh. In public, I stared at it like I was trying to burn a hole through my phone screen. My heart didn't even race. It just sank. Heavy, slow, like my body finally accepted what my mind had known for weeks. There was no fixing this. No confrontation. No therapy. No working through it. She had left me a long time ago. She just never packed. I saved the video. Downloaded it. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Amberlyn. She answered on the 3rd ring, chipper and way too loud. Keith? Hey. Wow, long time. I didn't waste time. Does Denise still tell people we're married? Silence. I waited. Then she said, slowly. I mean, yeah? Why? Just curious. Do you know the guy she was with last night? More silence. Then, look, Keith, I really don't want to be in the middle of anything. You already are, I snapped. That video you posted, I saw it. You tagged me, remember? And I'm the husband. Or I was. So now you can either tell me the truth, or you can keep pretending you didn't just put a loaded bomb in my lap. She sighed. His name's Chad. He's one of our clients. They've been close for a while. Honestly, I thought you two were separated. She made it sound like it was over. It was the way she said for a while that hit me. Not a month. Not a fling. This had been going on behind my back long enough for her coworkers to stop feeling guilty about it. And now I had everything I needed. Proof. A name. A timeline. The entire web, laid bare in one sloppy Instagram post. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I simply went to the bedroom, opened her closet, and pulled out her favorite suitcase, the silver one with the pink ribbon on the handle. The one she always used for work travel. I placed it gently by the front door. Then I opened my laptop and booked a 1-week cabin rental 2 hours north. Remote. Quiet. Peaceful. Not for her. For me. Because I wasn't just preparing to leave emotionally anymore. I was preparing to disappear. I didn't say a word to her that night. Not when she came home late. Not when she stepped over the suitcase by the door like it was someone else's problem. Not even when she paused, frowned at it for half a second, and then kept walking. That was the strangest part. How quickly she decided not to ask. Almost like she already knew the answer and didn't want to hear it out loud. She cooked pasta. Hummed again. Asked if I wanted some. I said no. That was it. That was our conversation. Inside, I was unraveling. My chest felt tight all the time, like I was constantly holding my breath. I kept expecting her to confront me, to explode, to cry, to finally admit something. But she didn't. She acted normal. Too normal. And that scared me more than any confession could have. The next few days, I played along. I answered her texts with one-word replies. I nodded when she talked. I even asked how her day was once, and she looked genuinely surprised, like she hadn't expected that version of me to exist anymore. She smiled. That same smile she gave him. And I hated myself for still noticing it. Meanwhile, I was quietly untangling our life. I changed my direct deposit, copied important files, forwarded my personal mail. I packed a duffel bag and hid it in the trunk of my car under an old blanket. Every small step felt like peeling off a layer of skin, but I kept going because stopping would mean breaking down, and I didn't trust myself to recover if I did. On Thursday night, she told me she'd be working late again. She didn't even try to lie creatively anymore. Just tossed the words out there like they were harmless. I said, okay, drive safe. She hesitated, looked at me for a second longer than usual. I could see the calculation behind her eyes. Was I suspicious? Was I angry? Was I planning something? I gave her nothing. She left. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Hey man, this is Chad. We need to talk." I stared at the screen for a long time. The audacity of it made my stomach churn. He thought he could just step into my life like this, like he was doing me a favor, like I owed him a conversation. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app and typed one sentence. "You don't need to explain what she already chose." Then I deleted it. He wasn't worth my words. None of them were. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because things were okay, but because I finally knew how this would end. Not with a fight. Not with begging. Not with closure she could twist to make herself feel better. It would end quietly. And when she finally realized what I'd done, it would already be too late to undo it. Because the note I left at the restaurant wasn't the real goodbye. That was still coming. And it would be the last thing she ever ignored. She didn't come home that night. I wasn't surprised. In fact, I was counting on it. I woke early the next morning, showered, dressed, and walked through the house one last time. I didn't touch anything. I didn't take keepsakes. Just the bag from my trunk and the copy of the hotel receipt I'd printed and placed in a plain white envelope, now sitting on the center of the dining table, right under the flickering chandelier she always said we'd replace, but never did. Inside the envelope was that receipt and a handwritten note. No theatrics. No bitterness. Just 10 simple words. "You were gone long before I ever noticed." I left my wedding ring beside it. No box. No explanation. I figured she'd understand what that silence meant better than anything I could ever say. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. 2 hours later, I pulled into the cabin. It was quiet, remote, tucked between tall pines and blanketed with snow that muffled the rest of the world. No service. No notifications. No updates. It was the first time in years I felt unreachable, and that feeling? It wasn't scary. It was peace. I spent the next few days breathing again, cooking simple meals, reading paperbacks, sleeping in without dread clawing at my chest. I wasn't healed, not by a long shot, but for once, I wasn't bleeding. And that was enough. On the 5th day, I got a message when I drove into town for groceries. It was from Denise. Just 3 words. "Where are you?" I didn't reply. A second message followed. "Can we talk? Please." Then a missed call. Then another. And still, I said nothing. Because I had already said everything I needed to in that note. There was nothing left for me in that house. Nothing left to save in a marriage where I had become invisible. Weeks passed. She tried everything. Texts, calls, emails from mutual friends. Even showed up at my brother's place asking if he knew where I was. He didn't tell her. He just said I was somewhere better now. And I was. 3 months later, I was working at a small IT firm upstate. Smaller pay, smaller town, but something about the simplicity made me feel whole again. I joined a weekend hiking group, adopted a dog, grew a beard. I didn't recognize the man in the mirror, and for the first time, that was a good thing. One afternoon, while walking my dog along the ridge trail, a woman stopped me. She had this shy smile and mismatched gloves and asked if I was from around here. We talked. Then we talked again a week later. And again after that. Her name was Tessa. She was gentle, curious. She didn't ask about my past right away. She let me share when I was ready. And when I finally did, she just nodded and said, "You're not him anymore." And that's okay. It wasn't some movie ending. No fireworks. No grand redemption arc. Just 2 people who'd been hurt learning how to breathe again, together. So no, I didn't destroy her. I didn't send the photos. I didn't expose her to her boss or her family or post it online for strangers to rage over. I simply vanished from her story and rewrote my own. And that was the real revenge. The kind that doesn't come with shouting. Just silence. And peace.